Let's do an interview with one of the guys of Nickelback, and the first and most easy question is, can you please introduce yourself?
My name is Chad Kruger, and I sing and play lead guitar.
Nickelback. I mean, I read the bio, so I know the answer to the following question. But I was thinking about it for a few weeks already. How do you get the name? But it's kind of a funny story, isn't it?
Yeah, my brother was working in a coffee shop in Vancouver, and everything at that coffee shop was like $1.95, $2.95, $3.95. So all day long, he's just constantly saying, "Here's your Nickelback, here's your Nickelback, here's your Nickelback." And he calls me up one day and says, "What do you think of the name Nickelback?" I said, "What does it mean?" He said, "Well, it doesn't mean anything." I'm like, "Oh, perfect. That's perfect." So it stuck, and people dig the name, so we went with it, and it's good. It doesn't really peg us down to one kind of music, and I like that. I like the fact that it's not like, with a name like Nickelback, it could be any kind of music. I really enjoy that.
Okay, but with the name Nickelback, at least in America and Canada, the country you're from, um, you can have some foot on the ground because it's going pretty well, isn't it?
Yeah, we just went gold in Canada, and we're on our way to going gold in America. We've sold about 400,000 copies. So so things are going well. I don't know if that has much to do with naming the band Nickelback or not, but
I should say it has something to do with the music.
yeah, I hope so. Um, I guess the trick to it is if you can write a song that'll stick in somebody's head, then they might run out and buy your CD.
That's a way to describe your music. I mean, it's really melodic. It has something positive. What I thought was like, well, the music comes from a background of like all the authentic rock in the last 20, 30 years, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm a huge fan of. I love the Beatles. I love Led Zeppelin. I love CCR. So there's three rock bands really. I mean, my brother's really into heavy music. So I mean, he's ecstatic to be on Roadrunner Records. He loves bands like I mean, I do as well, but he really loves Slipknot and Cold Chamber and Soulfly and Fear Factory and all these really really heavy bands. And he's the bass player. Ryan, our guitar player, he likes things that are far more melodic than I like. He really loves bands like Coldplay and David Gray, and then the drummer loves jazz. Drummer loves Miles Davis and just you name it. And I'm in the middle. I'm sort of I like all those things, but I also like straight up the road, Stone Temple Pilots. I like the Foo Fighters. I like the Deftones. I like Rage Against the Machine. I love Bob Marley. So as far as musical influences, it's just all over the map. Um, and when I take a song to the guys, and I've got most of the song done, my brother sort of takes us in a heavier direction, and Ryan puts a harmony on it, and sort of he takes us in a more of a melodic section. So we're sort of being yanked in four different directions. But once we get into the studio, everybody puts their spice into the pot, and what you hear is what you get.
And what's good about this way of working is that you don't have like one typical song, like a Nickelback song, and then on the album you have like 13 songs that sound the same. I mean, that's completely not true for this album. I mean, it goes all the way, and also in moods, etc.
Yeah, that's true. That's one thing that we've really tried to focus on. When you go and you watch a band, and it's like they play a couple songs, just like you said, it's like, hey, these guys are pretty good, but this song sort of sounds like the last one, and now this one is sounding like that one, and now this one's sounding like that one, and all the tempos wind up sounding the same, and the guitar riffs start to sound the same. And if you keep that in the back of your mind, and you're always thinking about that while you're writing, does this sound like something else I've written? Does this sound, too much like somebody else's material? Um, you can stay away from that, using a lot of different tempos, and that's one thing I really enjoy about this record, is the fact that it's got songs like "Leader of Men," which are it's sort of like a drug ballad, if you will, and then you've got other songs like "Breathe" that are a little crunchier, and there's no boundaries, and I like the fact that on our next record we're going to be able to go even lighter in one direction. And even heavier in another direction because we don't have any boundaries on us. We could play a fairly heavy song to an audience, and they would never say, wow, that doesn't sound very Nickelback. Doesn't sound a lot like Nickelback. Or we could play something lighter and still not have somebody say, "Wow, it just doesn't typically sound like the band." And I like that fact that there's no boundaries. There's not supposed to be rules in music. You're supposed to be able to write whatever you want. And I think too many bands get stuck in this one little pigeonhole, and they can't get out of that. And that can wind up being the death of a band.
Yeah, most of the times it is, because then you have like the trick of a band. So like, well, this is the sound that everybody likes. So then you have to write 20 other songs that sounds exactly the same. It's kind of annoying if you have to do that.
It is annoying. But then again, there are bands like AC/DC who have never changed their style. AC/DC will always sound exactly the same, and you gotta love them for that. If AC/DC came out with something that sounded really new and alternative, and it wasn't just straight up four on the floor rock and roll, it would be like
The death of the band.
death of AC/DC, exactly. So, in one sense, for bands like that, it's good because I just couldn't respect them if they did do a massive change. So, as long as they just keep putting out music that sounds exactly like AC/DC, they'll be fine, I'm sure.
You guys have been playing now for, if I remember it right, about 5 years or something. Can you tell us something about how it started, etc., where you're from?
Well, Canada is the largest country in the world now. So that being said, we only have double the population that you have here. There's 30 million people living there, and which means there's a lot of driving to do. And as it is in America, Canada is very much dominated by radio. You get played on the radio, you're going to sell a lot of records. And so that's something we try to focus on. And we had managers, and they were just glorified booking agents. They didn't really have a clue. The only thing is, as a booking agent, you take 10%, and as a manager, you take 20%. So why not call yourselves management? We sort of realized that and let them go. And we decided we would take this on ourselves. And we got Leader of Men, the third song on our record, to number 19. So we went top 20 in Canada, and we sold 10,000 copies of that CD. And that's when the record companies started flocking around saying, hey, if these guys who don't know anything about selling records can sell 10,000 copies on their own, imagine what we can do as a machine. And one thing we really liked about Roadrunner is the fact that they were the largest independent company. And with an independent company, if you don't take off and just explode right off the bat, if it takes a little more work, independent companies are willing to do that. Whereas a major label's like, you've got 8 weeks. If you don't explode, we're on to the next thing. And they're just playing the numbers. And that's why it was nice to go with Roadrunner, because they've been behind us, and they've given us this huge push in America, and we didn't explode off the bat. It's been a nice, solid, growing pace where we didn't take off selling 40,000 copies a week. We're selling 10,000 copies a week, and it's been a nice, nice steady climb. And without a company that would stick behind us, we knew that we had been lost in the shuffle. But now, with the setup that we've done with this album, the next one stands to do really well.
Talk about shows. I mean, are you guys going to play in Holland in the near future?
I don't know about the near future. As soon as we get home, I mean, this album is either was just released or is going to be released here very soon. As soon as we get home from the whole this whole European trip, we're going to start recording our next record. So I guess it's going to depend on how well it does over here. I mean, if things really take off, then we'll be back. If things flop for us horrendously over here, it might take until you guys get the next record before we get to come over and actually play instead of just doing a lot of press. But I would love to come to Europe and play, because one thing that about Europeans is they really respect the fact they love bands that can play their instruments, and that's one thing that we can really do. One thing that we've heard a lot is your CD sounds good, but you guys sound great live. And I love that. I love the fact that we can get up there, because there are so many bands these days that lip sync, and you know, the boy bands that do this, and bands that are completely contrived and are created in the studio that cannot pull their stuff off live. That's one thing that's always bothered me, and I love performing live. To the more people, the better. We got to play a lot of festivals with Godsmack and the Stone Temple Pilots over the last year, and we got to play to crowds as large as 35 to 40,000 people, and that is addictive. Yeah. You know, that's something that that's like no drug. It's phenomenal, because when you can't remember your name and all those people are just screaming, you know, you want to feel that feeling 24 hours a day. It's awesome. It really is.
Well, cool. And then, well, let's just hope you guys are going to play over here in Holland, because I'm pretty curious.
Yeah, I would love to come and play. Can't wait.
Thanks very much for this interview.
Thank you.